Welcome back to App Stories. This week's episode is brought to you by SourceGraph, Memberful, Instabug, and LinkedIn. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net, Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
Good. I explained a little bit in the pre-show for App Stories Plus subscribers that I'm sitting in an empty room recording this because I just moved to North Carolina and my furniture isn't here yet. So I do apologize if I'm a little bit echoey today, but it should only be this week because tomorrow all of my stuff comes and I can have a proper desk instead of sitting in a camping chair, etc., to get the recording done. But it's Thursday.
And for those who don't know, because I think you mentioned it on the App Stories Plus segment last week.
I guess that's right.
It's not like you moved to North Carolina for like a vacation or something. You moved to North Carolina.
I sold my house. Literally, yeah. I mean, fun fact, as we record this, my house, there are lawyers who are actually selling my house as I speak. So hopefully by the end of this episode, I'll have all the money in my bank account. But it's we moved down here and I got here a few days ago. My wife and son got here last night, and we're just starting to set up, and our furniture will come tomorrow. So it's been a long and busy process, but we're really happy to be down here and really like our new place.
Yeah, congratulations, obviously. And,
Thank you.
As soon as the money hits the bank account, it's time to get the sweet high-end gaming PC.
There you go. Don't say that. I'll start thinking about it again. I've looked at your gaming PC more than once online, Federico. I have to admit,
it's a great PC. And
it is. I know.
On it.
Look at it and I'm like, can I find something better than this? I'm like, no. Federico already researched this to death, and it's.
If you want to know more about my gaming PC, there's an episode of Unwind, which is a show that we put out every Friday. It's all about our media picks. And a couple of months ago, we did a surprise episode in which, for months, I told John nothing about the fact that I got a gaming PC. Right. It's a Corsair One compact gaming PC. It's an incredible machine for playing video games. And we recorded an episode of Unwind about the experience of setting up and using and playing video games on the Corsair One. So go check out that episode of Unwind. And there may be another surprise for John and the audience coming soon.
I have heard, and I based on what you told me during the App Stories Plus segment, plus what I heard on Connected yesterday, I have some ideas.
I mean, at this point, you should have an idea, but yeah.
But yes, I do have an idea. Gaming aside, Federico, I managed to bring my PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X down here.
Priorities, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't want that stuff getting damaged, but I left the controllers in something that the movers took. So I don't have any controllers. I have ways. I can always use my Backbone One and play remotely on my phone or something. But yeah, I don't think I have any controllers here at the moment. My extensive collection of controllers. I should have, that's the most precious collection I've got. I should have had that in my car trunk instead of letting the movers take it. But Here we are. All right, Federico, what do you say we talk about some of our favorite Mac apps?
We're talking about Mac apps today, and I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to mention one that, we were just talking about video games, and obviously I'm not going to be the person that says I do gaming on the Mac, because it's...
I might be someday. I don't know. I'm toying with this idea. I think it's probably ridiculous, but who knows? Maybe someday.
We'll see. But obviously I have a gaming PC, and I also have a Steam Deck. But specifically, I have a desktop tower, right? That right now is connected to my TV. I think eventually, we talked about this on App Stories Plus. I think eventually I would like to set it up with an external monitor at my desk. But I do have a gaming PC. And the thing about the gaming PC is, because of the way it's set up right now, it's basically sitting in the back of my bedroom TV. So I think I mentioned this before. I mentioned this on Unwind. When I want to play games on the PC, I purchased one of those all-in-one wireless Logitech keyboards that is like both a keyboard and a small trackpad on the right side. These are keyboards that are usually sold to people who want to do like couch gaming if they have a PC, or they want to control a media center, something like Plex or XMB that's running on a PC connected to a TV in the living room. So you get an all-in-one keyboard and you can just sit on the couch and control the Windows UI from the couch. So I got one of those. But I also got a 5-meter long USB-C cable so that I can run this cable from the TV all the way to the bed, and it's connected to my PS5 DualSense, which I use as a gaming controller for the PC. So all this to say that, I mean, I've played 70 hours of Elden Ring that way. It's totally doable. But sometimes, a while back, I was wondering, I'm sure there are solutions to stream on my local Wi-Fi 6 network the game from the PC to something like an iPhone or an iPad, or even better, the MacBook Pro. Because the MacBook Pro, it's got this beautiful 14-inch display, can sit on my lap, and it's a great form factor for, playing video games in front of you. It's even bigger than my iPad Pro. So the utility I want to mention today is Moonlight. Moonlight is this utility that allows you to stream games from your PC to, it's available on every platform. You can get it on iPhone and iPad. It's on the App Store. You can get it on PC if you have another laptop or something and you want to install Moonlight. But there's also Moonlight for macOS. And that's my pick today. Moonlight for macOS allows you to stream games from a Windows machine in your local network onto your MacBook or iMac or whatever. What's great about this is that it's super easy to set up. It supports, if you have a good Wi-Fi network, that's a requirement, right? You got to have a solid Wi-Fi network in your house that provides a ton of bandwidth. And I do have a Wi-Fi 6 or Netgear Orbi setup here. I got one core unit in the kitchen and another satellite here. But Moonlight, it supports streaming games starting at 720p all the way up to 4K. So you can do 4K streaming. You can do HDR streaming. And you can even stream up to 120 frame rates per second. So obviously the MacBook Pro has a ProMotion display, which means I can do 4K 120 FPS just fine using Moonlight. Moonlight recognizes gaming controllers paired on macOS, and the quality and the latency has been incredible, right? So you install Moonlight, you can download it from GitHub. It's an open source project, which is incredible. As I mentioned, you can get it on the App Store for iPhone and iPad. And on iPhone and iPad, it also supports ProMotion, HDR, and all that kind of stuff. The same is true on the Mac. You just download the app from the GitHub release page, and you do the initial setup where you gotta find your local, your PC on your local network. It's like setting up like a VNC client, basically. And
that's what it sounds like.
Essentially, it is a glorified VNC client, but it's specifically optimized for gaming.
Sure.
And once that's done, your PC is going to show up in the list of configured computers, and you can go into the settings of Moonlight, and you can set the resolution, so you can just do 4K. You can set the FPS cap. In my case, I set it to 120. You can decide, do you want to enable VSync or these other advanced settings for graphics? You can configure keyboard shortcuts. You can configure gamepad buttons. You can configure the audio, and you can even decide: do you want to play full screen or do you want to play with a borderless window? Right? All these settings that you may be familiar with if you used something like Steam Remote Play. These you can do with Moonlight on the Mac. So if you're like me and you have a gaming PC, but sometimes, maybe the gaming PC is in another room, or maybe, you just want to play something for 20 minutes and you already have your MacBook Pro with you, you can stream it just fine as long as you have a solid Wi-Fi network.
Oh, that sounds terrific. I know I had looked at and downloaded the iOS version of this, but I haven't really had a use for it yet. I mean, I do have the iNeo, which is a Windows PC that I could use this with, but it seems like a weird use case to actually use that with another mobile, because it's mobile, with another mobile device. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by SourceGraph. So you've hired a brilliant developer. That's great, but now you have to get them onboarded. If your company is growing, onboarding new developers will be a common occurrence, but it's a big undertaking every time. One of the biggest challenges to new hires is to get up to speed on the projects their new team are working on. This can be tricky if code bases your developers are working in are already large. Thankfully, SourceGraph makes it easy to move fast, even in those big code bases. Developers know that knowledge is most useful when it's findable. Centralization is helpful, but given the fact that most companies store knowledge in at least 2 different places, how do you make knowledge accessible to those who need it? As a code intelligence platform, SourceGraph gives developers what they need to drive their own learning over time and in different situations. Teams without SourceGraph need to rely on asking colleagues or reviewing out-of-date documentation, which is cumbersome and time-consuming. But with SourceGraph, every developer can search across millions of repositories to find specific code, saving time for themselves and everyone else. So when questions do come up, you know that it's the big stuff that's worthy of the extra time. SourceGraph was created to make developers' lives easier, and today they work with leading companies across every industry, including 3 out of the 5 top tech companies, plus PayPal, Uber, Plaid, GE, Reddit, and Atlassian. Visit about.sourcegraph.com to learn more. Again, that's about.sourcegraph.com to find out why some of the biggest tech companies in the world use SourceGraph and to see what it can do for yours. Or just click on the link in the show notes to let them know you heard about them from us. Our thanks to SourceGraph for their support of the show. My first pick, Federico, is Neptunes, and we've talked about Neptunes a little bit here and there. I mean, it's a menu bar utility on the Mac that tells you what song you're listening to, and it's got a lot of options that I really like. I mean, at its simplest, it's just an icon that sits up in the menu bar, and you can click on it and see things like the songs that you've most recently played. And when you highlight one of them, you get a bunch of options, to do things like copy the artist information or the title information or a link to either Spotify or Apple Music, all of which is kind of nice. But one of the things it added not too long ago is that when you highlight one of these songs, you also get similar artist and similar track information. And I think it's using the Last FM API for this. But it's kind of a neat way that, once in a while I'll go in there and I've been listening to something and I hear something new that I really like and haven't heard before. And I'll go through and just see if there are any other similar artists that I might want to check out as well. So you've got that sort of thing. You've also got a Last FM integration, which allows you to Scrabble. So you can keep track of all the things you've listened to throughout the year, which, it's funny because Last FM's been around forever, but there was a real quiet period where there wasn't a lot of support on iOS or the Mac with really good utilities. And I feel like there's been a real renaissance in that because now they're all over the place. I mean, Last FM seems to be incorporated in an awful lot of apps, including this one. And in addition to just doing the scrabbling, it also gives you some stats. You get, if you go to the drop down from the Neptunes menu bar app, you'll see how many total Scrabbles you've got. I've got 11,059, Federico. Wow. And how many artists? I've got almost 1,700 artists and about 169 loved tracks. I don't have nearly as many of those because until recently I didn't have a good way to do that. In terms of you've also got here top albums. It'll show you a grid of your top albums, and I've got it set up so it's showing my top albums from the last half year. So there are 9 albums listed here that I can jump to if I want to. Beyond that, the preferences are where the action really gets going with Neptunes, because you can not only have its icon up in the menu bar, you can also have the track and artist information floating up there in the menu bar, which is something that I do. And it's unusual because I don't like to crowd my menu bar, but a lot of times when I'm working and listening to music on my Mac, having that information there where I can just glance at it in the menu bar is fantastic. And on top of that, you can just click on that track information to play, pause your music. So, it keeps you from having to flip over to music quite as much, or even just, find the buttons in your function row on your Mac. So there's that. Another thing that it does is it has a floating widget. I don't use this personally, but you can have a widget float on top of your other windows if you want, or not float, I believe, that has the album art. So you can kind of constantly see the album art as you play your music. And the app's dock icon can be made to look like the album art as well. So there's just a lot of different little features here. The other preference that I like is that there are keyboard shortcuts for not just the playback controls, which you can have, music has those anyway, but there are ones for doing things like loving a track and rating a track. And these are my favorite. My favorite really is, I don't really use ratings. I switched many years ago to just either loving or not loving songs. And I've set up keyboard shortcut. It's Control L, so that every time I'm listening to something and really like something, I'll hit Control L and it populates into my loved tracks playlist that I keep in Apple Music. So, which is a very, very long playlist at this point. But it's a great way to do that too, without having to go over to music and find that little 3-dot button and scroll down to the loved option and love it that way. So Neptunes, that's my first pick.
It's a great utility. I also use it for the scrobbling. And I do have 24,000 scrobbles. And I'm approaching 25,000. I've been using Last.fm since September 22, 2008. So almost 14 years using Last.fm. So I've been scrobbling for a long time.
I go way back with scrobbling, but I had many years with zero.
Yeah, same year. That's when I stopped doing it, and now it's back in fashion. Not really, but I like to think
At least it is with you and me.
It is.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Memberful. Memberful is the easiest way to sell memberships to your audience, used by the biggest creators on the web. Memberful handles the hard stuff so you can focus on what you do best while earning revenue quickly. If you're looking to add membership to your existing business, you want a solution that works with your existing technology so you can launch a new revenue stream without rebuilding your entire tech stack. Memberful seamlessly integrates with the tools you already use, like WordPress, MailChimp, Discord, and lots more. Memberful maintains full-featured GraphQL API webhooks and OAuth single sign-on to make it easy to integrate seamlessly with any stack. Memberful also maintains a best-in-class WordPress plugin to add membership and content restriction to your website. Use a custom domain name so everything is fully branded under your name. It also connects directly with Stripe for secure payments, and it handles all of your transactional email. Memberful has everything you need to run a membership program, including custom branding, gift subscriptions, Apple Pay, free and paid trials, private podcasts, in-house newsletters, referrals, and tons more. You have full control and ownership of your audience, your brand, and your membership. We've used Memberful for years for Club Mac Stories, and we absolutely love it. Get started for free with no credit card required today by going to memberful.com/appstories. Again, that URL is memberful.com/appstories. Our thanks to Memberful for their support of the show.
So the utility I want to mention next, something that I covered on Mac Stories before. It's an app called Mission Control Plus. So Mission Control Plus, as the name implies, it's an enhancement for the built-in mission control multitasking UI on the Mac. Now, obviously, Stage Manager is coming to macOS Ventura, and I do not have Ventura installed on my MacBook Pro right now because I have been, I was told by Mike and Steven, and I think you will agree with them, I am forbidden from installing Ventura on my production machine right now because I got to record podcasts, and the app that I use is not compatible with Ventura yet. But still, I don't know yet if when the time comes that Ventura will be on my MacBook Pro, I will switch to Stage Manager or not. I don't know if I will keep using my existing system based on Mission Control and Better Touch Tool and shortcuts, or if I will just embrace Stage Manager. I don't know what to think about Stage Manager on the Mac yet. So for now, I'm using Mission Control Plus for two very specific features that this utility brings, to macOS. In Mission Control, which I set to activate. I don't know if this is the default or something that I just do on my machine, but I have mission control set to activate with a 3-finger swipe up.
Yeah, that's the default, I think.
That's the default. So when you are in mission control, by default, you can just hover with the cursor over a window and you can click it to open the window. You cannot do anything else. Mission Control Plus, when you have it installed and you hover over a window in Mission Control, the first thing you'll notice is that it puts an X button in the top left corner of the window thumbnail. That's a close button that allows you to close windows right there from Mission Control. And this may seem like a small enhancement, but it really does save you a lot of time. If you have a bunch of windows open, you can just go into Mission Control and do click, 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 and you click on those close buttons and you close windows right there instead of having to activate the app and then close the window. Even better, Mission Control Plus lets you hover over Windows and then press the usual keyboard shortcuts for managing Windows and applications. So if you press Command W, you close the window. You just hover, Command W, and you close the window. Or you can hover and press Command Q to quit the app from Mission Control. This is a great way to regain control of your open windows, especially if you have like an application that has 5 or 6 different windows open. You can just hover over one, press Command Q, and you're gonna quit the app and remove all of those open windows from Mission Control. Honestly, after trying Mission Control Plus, and I think you can download it for free. There's a free trial, and then the unlock, I think it's something like $8 or something forever. No subscriptions, no in-app purchases or things like that. You just, it just makes sense. At least the way that I look at this is how Mission Control is supposed to be. Like when Mission Control Plus is not running for whatever reason, and I open Mission Control and I don't see the close button or the keyboard shortcuts do nothing, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. So maybe one day the functionality of Mission Control Plus will be Sherlocked by Apple and integrated into Mission Control. Maybe I won't care about Mission Control Plus in the future anymore because I'll just switch to Stage Manager, but that I don't know yet. For now, I think if you use Mission Control, you gotta look into Mission Control Plus. Just download it for free, see how it works for you. You can configure, there's all these keyboard shortcuts that you can use, and there's a list of the supported commands. I really like it, and it's a small utility that I recommend to everyone who uses Mission Control.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I did not know about this until you told me about it recently, and I use Mission Control all the time. And you're right; these feel like things that really should have been built into Mission Control, but with this relatively inexpensive utility, you can have them without any trouble. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Instabug. Building mobile apps presents some challenges. Bugs, crashes, and performance issues can be a nightmare for developers. But what if you could not only detect all of these issues, but also get a holistic understanding of the quality of your app from your user's point of view? Instabug's lightweight SDK grabs all of the insights you need to build top-quality apps through comprehensive bug and crash reports, performance monitoring, and real-time user feedback, all in one SDK. With Instabug, you can continuously monitor and measure performance of your app as perceived by your users, empower your users to report issues and ask questions seamlessly from right inside your app, and get all of that information that you need about bugs, crashes, and other issues so that you can get them fixed in record time, all with a focus on privacy and security. And you don't need to worry about the hassles of switching to a new tool. It only takes a minute to integrate Instabug into your app, and it fits right in with your current workflow, with support for Jira, Slack, Trello, GitHub, Zendesk, and over 10 other popular tools. Join over 25,000 top mobile developers around the world who use Instabug to ship high-quality apps. Go to try.instabug.com/appstories today. Again, that URL to learn more about Instabug is try.instabug.com/appstories so they know you came from the show. Our thanks to Instabug for their support of App Stories. All right, Federico, my next pick is really going to turn into a dual pick because This one started out as just Magnet, and Magnet is an app. It's a utility on the Mac in your menu bar. Again, that's kind of a theme here for me today, that lets you move your windows around your Mac screen. It's a lot like Moom, for instance, which is an app I used to use and also very good. Mm-hmm. But I've really settled on Magnet over the last couple of years. And what I like about it is not only can you go up into the menu bar and switch a window to be, it can be like the left half or the right half, or it can be any of the corners in quarters, or it can be in thirds, left, middle, or right, or it can be maximized so it fills your screen but isn't full screen, or it can center your windows into the center of it. And all that is really simple and really nice. What makes it powerful from my standpoint, I think, is the keyboard shortcuts, because everything in this app can be driven with keyboard shortcuts, which I absolutely love, because not only can I assign whatever keyboard shortcuts I want that'll work globally throughout the system, having those sorts of global keyboard shortcuts, allow me to tie it into other apps like the Shortcuts app, or a Stream Deck, for instance, which works really well. So, there's some other features that are worth noting. I mean, it handles multiple displays. It also has window snapping, which is a lot like what Windows does, where you can, for instance, drag a window to the top of the edge of your screen, and then it will maximize it to the full screen, or you can do it to a side and it'll do half, that kind of thing, or a corner and do quarters. Those things I use quite a bit. It's also allows you to ignore certain apps if you want, which is not something I've done, because I've always found that I want to do this with any app, really. I suppose there are some apps that have very fixed size windows where it wouldn't make sense and you could choose to ignore, I suppose. But the second piece of this pick, beyond Magnet, is an app that I just reviewed this last week called Warp. And Warp is, to me, it's almost the perfect companion to Magnet, because it lets you save your Windows setups as presets. And again, it's a menu bar app. You get your windows situated the way you want, then you save a preset, give it a name, and it too can have a global keyboard shortcut. I've only run into this app recently, and it works really well. It's just so simple. The keyboard shortcuts really make it powerful, again, for the same reasons that I like having global keyboard shortcuts in Magnet, or any app for that matter. And I've been using it for instance, I'll set up Safari on the left 2/3 of my screen and Obsidian on the right 1/3 if I'm taking notes on something that I'm reading on Safari. Other times I've set up things like, you can, maybe set up Twitter on one side and Reader on the other, which is a way that I often will kind of go through headlines for the day and see if there's anything I want to link on Mac Stories, that sort of thing. But, it really is, whenever you have a work setup on your Mac that you need more than one app and you like to have it consistent from session to session, an app like this is a great way to do it. So check out the review on Mac Stories, because I just reviewed it last week.
Yeah, Warp is the kind of utility that I wish was possible on the iPad,
Oh, yeah.
This idea of you're taking a system feature, in this case, you're taking multi-window and you're taking multitasking, and you are able as a developer to create a utility that enhances the system, just like Mission Control Plus takes an existing system feature and makes it better. And Warp is I think I am going to grab this one as soon as we're done, because it is the sort of preset-based approach that I've always wanted to have. I can think of a few instances in which I could create a podcasting workspace with a set of particular windows and apps open a certain way. Or I could have a research or a Pokemon Warp preset, that kind of stuff. I wish that I could do it on the iPad. You can sort of fake it with shortcuts, but the problem with shortcuts, split screen actions There's no stage manager actions. But the problem with the other split screen actions in shortcuts is that you don't have fine-grained window control. So you cannot say this particular window from this particular app. It's either, it just defaults to grabbing the last used window. So utilities like Warp are really what I love about the Mac and what developers can do. Hopefully one day on iPadOS as well, although I don't know.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn believes B2B marketing can be B2 brilliant, B2 bold, and B2 breakthrough. How? With a platform purpose-built to make B2B mean more for your business, with tools to help you build better relationships with your key customers, and to boost your buyer journey while building your brand. A platform with the trusted data and lead generation you need to beat KPIs, drive ROI, and stand out amongst the competition. And with the targeting tools on LinkedIn, you can reach your precise audience right down to their job title, company name, location, and more to make sure your ads are always being seen by those who matter. So get ready to B2 boldly go where no marketers have gone before, because LinkedIn is where B2B is everything it can be. LinkedIn is a great way to figure out what's going on in your industry. I've used it to do things like figure out what's going on in the podcast advertising space and things like that. It's also, though, a great way to market to your customers. No matter what industry you're in, you can learn more about your potential customers and help land them as customers by marketing to them directly. Rethink your B2B marketing with LinkedIn ads and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/appstories to claim your credit. Again, that's linkedin.com/appstories. Terms and conditions apply. Our thanks to LinkedIn for their support of the show.
So speaking of podcasting, my final pick for today, and I know that you have some more, John, but I really need to mention Audio Hijack. Audio Hijack, we covered on Mac Stories before. I don't think a lot of people necessarily know about Audio Hijack because you really gotta be into audio recording. You often hear about Audio Hijack from other podcasters, but I think it has applications that go beyond podcasting. Whether you need to record like a Zoom call or any kind of work-related audio call, or whether you're recording something for a video or a tutorial or a screencast, is such an excellent utility for all kinds of things that relate to audio. And this is not a surprise because Rogue Amoeba, they really know their stuff when it comes to audio and all the other utilities that they make, like Loopback, for example. It's another excellent Rogue Amoeba utility. Audio Hijack, what I love about it is two things: the design, and now in the latest version for the automation. So the design, what I love about this is that in Audio Hijack, you basically create your own workflow in a visual manner. You have these sessions that you can set up in Audio Hijack. And sessions are made by blocks. And blocks are connected to each other by these lines. And the lines represent the audio input and output. All these blocks, they're literally called blocks in the main UI of Audio Hijack. They are organized in different types of sections. You have your sources, your outputs, effects, meters, and other advanced blocks. The idea is that you can mix and match all of these to create the perfect recording session for you. So, for example, in my case, I usually have these sessions that are split into two sections. At the top, I'm always recording a backup call of the application where I'm doing the audio call, whether it's Skype or Discord or Zoom. I always keep a local recording of the main app where the call is being hosted. So in my case, I have an application block. It goes into a meter, and then it splits into two. One goes into a recorder block that creates a WAV file in Finder, and these files are created as you record. That's another advantage of Audio Hijack. Before, when I was using QuickTime, it happened in 9 years of podcasting. It happened a couple of times that QuickTime lost my audio file because of because my computer had a lockup or something. The way that QuickTime saves files at the end, I lost my entire recording. That's not the case with Audio Hijack because it saves the file as you record. So you can always keep the latest few seconds of what you said saved in Finder. But also that source, it also goes back into the left and right channels and it goes into my USB interface, which means I can hear myself, I can hear other people on the call, but it doesn't create any echo effects or like double return of the audio. It's perfect. And I like that I can see visually what these lines do and where they go. But in the lower section of my session, I can also create a local recording of just my microphone. And that's how we record podcasts on App Stories, and the same is true for my other shows. Each of us record our local microphones, and then the 3 local recordings are mixed in together, and then that's how you make a podcast. When 3 audio files love each other, they make a podcast. So the way that Audio Hijack does it is it's like a mind map, basically, where you have this canvas with all these blocks connected to each other, and each of these flows can do something different. In my case, I set up, as I mentioned, a recording of the call. And that recording, you can also, open the properties of the block, and you can say, I want this file to be named a particular way and to have a specific file format. But the recording of my microphone, I wanted to have another file naming structure and another file format. So that's also great. And that's the design and the way that the things are set up in Audio Hijack. In version 4, in addition to a UI refresh and some reorganization of the sidebar where you can put together these blocks and check out your recordings, they added full-on automation support on the Mac, obviously, with shortcuts integration, but also scripting. Audio Hijack 4 as its own JavaScript engine for doing a bunch of things to your recording sessions. In my case, I wrote about this on Mac Stories. I set up a few triggers in Audio Hijack. You have triggers that are called events, but they are triggers, basically, for starting a session and stopping a session. So when I start a session, in the background, Audio Hijack can run one of my shortcuts that starts a timer in the Timery app for time tracking. And what's even nicer about this is that shortcut gets input from Audio Hijack. Audio Hijack can say, hey, shortcuts, here's the shortcut that I want to run, and here's the name of the session as some input. And because the name of the session, in this case, for example, App Stories, is also the name of my timer, Shortcuts knows that it's supposed to start the App Stories timer. And it's great because there's no interaction on my end. It all happens automatically. As soon as I click record, Audio Hijack tells Shortcuts that I'm recording App Stories, and Shortcuts says, fine, I guess I'll start the App Stories timer in the background. And the same is true when I stop recording, right? So when I stop recording, Audio Hijack sends another event to Shortcuts saying, stop recording. And in that case, Shortcuts just uses the timer reaction to stop recording the file. And I also added another automation here, which is discard small files. This is useful for all those times when you're just double checking your inputs and you're double checking that your microphone works and that you can hear yourself. So you end up with this 3 or 4 second files where you're just speaking into the microphone, things like 1, 2, 3, test. And those files, they accumulate in Finder and they're useless, right? They're just testing files and they're very small. So Audio Hijack can automatically discard those small files. All this to say, there's tons of freedom in this application. It's another example of the kind of utility that is only possible on macOS, and where on macOS it goes beyond audio now, thanks to its integration with scripting, with JavaScript, and with shortcuts. I love it. Especially version 4 with this shortcuts integration. It allowed me to save so much time and to be so much more consistent with my time tracking. I love this app.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And I'll give people an example of something you can do that isn't podcasting, which I think is kind of handy, which is, say you've got a favorite artist that is doing some sort of live stream, whether it's an audio stream or a video stream, right? You can, because Audio Hijack has access to the audio coming out of every app on your Mac, you can stream a concert, for instance, through Safari, grab that audio and save it through Audio Hijack, and then turn it into your own little live concert that you can add to Apple Music and listen to it again. So I've done that a bunch of times. That's a great way to grab some audio. All right, Federico, for my very last pick, I'm going to do just one more. I'm going to pick Screens 4 by Adovia. All right, Screens is a VNC client, and this essentially just lets you access other computers remotely from your Mac. It also is available on iOS and iPadOS, but I want to focus on the Mac because this is something that I do quite a bit, actually. So I'll give you a couple of use cases. One is that I have a 2018 Mac Mini. It's a pretty well-spec'd machine that I don't use for my day-to-day work anymore, but it's a Plex server. And I do some other, automation type stuff on it, but primarily it's a Plex server, which at the moment, because of my move, is down and not running. But I used to run that in a closet right behind where I worked at my desk. And it didn't have a screen connected to it. But when I wanted to go in and tweak something with Plex, maybe update some software or do something with the settings or just check that it's working properly, I would use Screens because I could open it up at my desk on my other Mac, on any other Mac that I've got set up with a screen. And it's a portal into that other 2018 Mac Mini because it opens up a window. You can set up you can set up different profiles, for different Macs, as it works with Linux and Windows as well, and use that to control that Mac. Because what it'll do is when it opens that window, it'll open. It shows you the actual screen streamed over your local network. It shows you the screen of that Mac that you're controlling remotely, so you can interact with it just like you would the Mac if it had a screen attached to it. Now, you can also do things like, since you're not actually controlling that Mac with a screen that's attached to it, there's some special things you can do, like copying the clipboard on the Mac that is the remote Mac and sending that clipboard to the remote one so that the text moves back and forth. You can also initiate file transfers, which is a handy thing if maybe you have a file on a Mac that you want to grab really quickly. You can use Screens to get it and move it to another computer. But I use it a lot for that Plex use case. But it's come in handy in some other occasions too. For instance, when I've been traveling, I'll typically travel with my MacBook Air, and it's not as powerful as the Mac that I typically have, a desktop that I have at home, which currently is a Mac Studio. And so there's certain things for processing audio, for instance, that we do when I do the production work for our podcasts that's much faster on the Mac Studio. So no matter where I happen to be in the world, I can connect to that remote Mac if it's turned on, and we keep our audio files in Dropbox, and I can just work on that Mac as if it's in the same room with me, even if I'm sitting in a hotel in Rome, like I did last fall when I visited you. And I can do that kind of front-end audio processing much more quickly that way. It just saves the files back to Dropbox, and then I can grab them locally on my laptop and then do the editing from there. So that's something that I've done several times. It's just a really handy utility to have for any of those occasions where you're like, even if you decide, I don't want to get off the couch, I need something on my Mac that's in another room. You can use it to be lazy too, and just grab something and use it that way as well. And I've found too that the thing that makes it easiest to use is to set up Screens Connect, which is a little helper utility that you can put on your remote Mac that kind of deals with the process of connecting the two computers together securely so that you can get the best connection possible. So I tend to set that up with any new Mac, and then I can access them whenever I want.
Yeah, I love screens. I set it up for my Mac Mini when I used to have one, and for my 2 Intel NUCs, and for my gaming PC. It's excellent. I have an Adobe account, and all those computers are synced everywhere. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's really nice. And the way it's done is like profiles, where you go into the app and you see little thumbnails of the screens that you were last logged into. Just makes it really intuitive and easy to use. And I've been using it for years now, and it's perfect for that sort of thing. All right, Federico, that is it for this week on App Stories. I want to thank our 4 sponsors for this episode: SourceGraph, Memberful, Instabug, and LinkedIn. You can subscribe to App Stories Plus by going to appstories.plus. And if you subscribe, you'll get longer episodes with our extended content. You'll also get them a day early and in high bitrate audio with no ads. You can find me and Federico at macstories.net. Federico's on Twitter and Instagram, where he's at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.